Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of the previous video I did on Nigerians, young women and men who are finding themselves on the street, unfortunately. I understand that this topic is not a fun one or a light one, but we must talk about it. I've lived in Canada for the past 27 years. I came as a vulnerable orphan. I was 19 when I landed here, so I can relate to those stories. And it's important that we in the African diaspora talk about those things. And it's important that you, the audience who is watching this video, is aware. Some of you may be thinking of moving here, and really highly recommend that you do if you meet the requirements. Or I would say I highly encourage that you consider moving here because if there is economic opportunities that you can leverage or even education, why not? Because as much as I am a pro Africa for business, for investing, for school, there are many elements that are not quite there. Thank you again. If you haven't subscribed, please do. The community is growing. Please subscribe, help this channel grow. In the previous video, I introduced two videos. One is a young lady, and there's another young man who are on the streets, homeless. I live in Vancouver, and trust me, you don't want to be on the street in winter. In Toronto right now, it's very cold, freezing weather.
Coldest air it's seen in years.
Not gonna lie, my eyes are watering from the cold. These are some really, really chilly winds right now.
Even if though they are shelters are not open 24/7. Some shelters here, they are open for people to come in and sleep, but during the day you have to find yourself on somewhere. You have to be somewhere. The last video, if you haven't watched the channel, the previous video, please go. Highly recommend that you do so you can understand where we are coming from. I did it in two parts because I wanted the topic that I was discussing to be short. I didn't want the video to be long, just short to the point, just like I will do on this one.
Oh my God! Wow!
And so the last topic I was on, it was end of life planning. End of life planning. And in itself, it's a big topic because the young man who is 25 years old was saying that his father had a stroke, unfortunately, and they could not continue paying his education, which makes me wonder if you're going to send your kid miles and miles away. I mean, Nigeria and Canada. I would think that you will plan, and I know this for a fact because we in the global African community, we don't plan for our end of life. So end of life, it means if I was to pass away today, I have to put a will in place. I have to think about all implications, financial, family, and I have to have everything in place. And you don't have to be very wealthy to do that. I know this because most of the time, some people who pass away here from the global African diaspora, we all go on GoFund. And GoFund, we raise money to support the funeral. And our funeral can be quite expensive. So that tells me that there is this continuum of people of African descent not really planning, and we are not immoral. That's what I was saying. So yeah, the father got sick, fortunately passed away. But what was done to put that in place to ensure that the kid, and I hope it's the only kid. Imagine if you had more than one kid. If you're the one providing for your family and you pass away and you have kid abroad, there should be things that your wishes that say this is what's going to happen. It's not just financial, it's also maybe setting money aside for the ticket. If you know that your funding is going to not allow the kid to continue, it is expensive. International students pay a lot of money there have to be a plan in place. So it sounds like maybe that plan did not exist, or if it did exist, maybe the young man has not done anything maybe to either go back home. And again, I'm not being critical, I'm just asking those constructive questions because that's why I built this channel. I would assume that as much as we love being here, if it doesn't go well, at least you have a place to go back to. I understand the mom is still around. It will be challenging for some of us. My parents died. I haven't not lived in Rwanda since I was 16 years old. My country is not, it's safe now. Thank you. I love it. I go to Rwanda, but the roots I had primarily through my parents is not there. You may say relatives, it's more complicated than that. But if you still have a mom there, maybe siblings, your direct family, I don't see why the boy cannot go back. And looking at the video, I don't want to be judging, but he may be high on some stuff. You can tell. And so, which leads me to the addiction. But watch another video before we continue.
Your name, man?
Marcel Tabai Yusuf.
Where are you
Nice to meet
from?
Nigeria.
And so what brought you to Canada, bro?
Well, initially I came as a student, international business, but it's not been easy since last year. Like I was in school and everything. I have sickle cell and I had to leave school, not just because of that, though, but for other financial issues. Any Nigerian would understand what I'm talking about. Like,
Last night, where did you sleep, bro?
well, I left the shelter. I don't have a place of my own now. So last night I slept in the street bus after I left the hospital because the cold, made me very sick and all of that.
Yes. So here's another young man who is also on the street. He has some medical condition. This is heartbreaking, guys. And by the way, sorry about the noise. I film from the library. We create this. We have passion to bring you amazing content, but we do it from the library. It's a public place. Sometimes you hear noise. Anyways, this young man also is on the street. It it's sad, but the one thing I want to mention is they're not the only one. We are seeing this. First, we know there's a surge of homelessness in Canada because after the pandemic, things are not the same. The world is not the same. Finding jobs is harder, and yes, international students, they are limited to a number of hours they can work. It's not like before. I think it's limited to 20 hours. Even then, if you come to Canada, you know how you came. If you're an international student, you should be able to understand your situation and put everything in motion so that if something was to happen, yes, sometimes life, you can't plan for everything. However, I'm really questioning, having been in this life in Canada and coming young. In my case, I didn't even have anyone paying for anything. I literally had to make my own money from zero. I had no support. So I know what I'm talking about. I had to work, guys. I had to work. I was an international student, luckily, so I didn't have certain limitations. But even then, immigration just changed recently. So before it wasn't that complex. People could easily, especially international students, apply for permanent residency and then transfer into that. And I think there have been many who have been able to do that. So for you who are not in Canada, if you have a temporary visa, such as international students or tourists, I hope you didn't come on a tourist visa, you can apply for a more permanent documents such as a work permit or permanent residency, and there is different categories because some can apply for asylum or refugee status. Usually international students, they can make a transit into, once they graduate, into a work permit type of situation, and once you are here, you should be less challenging for you to secure a job, because during your studies, then you've been able to build relationships, and most of them they succeed in doing so. I'm not quite sure why it didn't work for at least the last two subjects in the video, the two young men, because the other lady seems she had established a business that didn't do well. Planning, I sense that planning, because some of Africans they have this Hollywood vision of how life is gonna be here, and you get into this dreamland that you don't really put your feet on the ground and think of all the possible scenarios. I'm not saying they didn't do that. If you are thinking of coming here, that's how I've succeeded up until now. I think of all the scenario. I said in the first video that every decision I've made since I arrived here, and not everything succeeded, was so that I remain sheltered, I have a place to stay, I remain employed, especially. It's sad to see our young women and men going through this. They're not the only one, by the way. And that's why I applaud the people in the videos I just showed to you that they have spoken out, because I know they are not the only one. We have many young women and men, even here in Vancouver, they're just quiet. There are some who are on the streets and their parents don't even know. They still think that the kid is in school. Some are still collecting money from their parents and using it for their own personal non-schooling expenses, and that's sad. But it's happening. It's happening in Canada. I know this because I have friends uh, who are international students, so it's not something I'm just speculating. What I would like you to do if you're watching this video is, let's start a conversation, knowing that we can't save everyone, we cannot save everyone. People have to want to be helped, but they have to help themselves. If you're not willing to help yourself, why should anyone else come and help you?